Wanted to talk about a couple of things I guess are kind of important. I was listening to Steve Burns, and he was talking about masculinity, basically indirectly the patriarchy. And they didn't really want to call it the patriarchy because patriarchy gets into fucking, what do you call it? Toxic masculinity. And I don't know what's going on recently, but there is a fine line between masculinity and toxic masculinity. That's kind of what the movie Fight Club is based on. And basically, toxic masculinity is when your ego runs wild and it's completely out of control, but it wants to be in control of everything. And the only thing I can think about is this dumbass church and how the church is an extension of one man's massive ego and how he needs to control everything because he's an imbecile. But, this dude started talking about, women and birth rates, which is a big talking point about every church ever because if they can make women make more members, those members can then pay into the church later and make the church more money. Yes, more money for the massive human trafficking ring. When you see churches, you should really just think of them as tax-exempt human trafficking rings. It is disgusting, the amount of churches that actually do human trafficking. And if you really wanted to get rid of human trafficking, then you really want to get rid of all religion and all churches because they are the number one offenders and they get away with it because they have tax exempt status. You or I cannot stop them. I mean, I tried and I got the shit kicked out of me because apparently the U.S. government can build a nuclear warhead that can that can hunt down one unlucky bastard hiding out in the desert and shove a nuke right up his ass, but they can't defend one U.S. citizen. Because the U.S. government is kind of useless in that nature. Yeah. But as far as women go, women need to understand they can get artificial insemination and raise kids by themselves. And there is a war, and I'm going to talk about this. There is a war with capitalists because capitalists are anti-women because they view women as socialism and communism. This feeds into Blondie when I first talked to him and he just kept going communism, communism, and I was talking about socialism and he kept accusing me of being a communist, and it is because these people love capitalism, but they don't just love capitalism. They love white supremacy capitalism. They love it when white people have all the money and all the power and all the control and everybody else that's not white suffers. That is the aspect. That is what Blondie wants in his life. He wants everything to be handed to him because of the color of his skin. He doesn't want a fair world of justice because justice is also communism to him. It is unjust to hold him to account for his actions. So the war on women, and it is a war on women. Part of the AI stuff, when I was president of this church and I first started talking about AI, I actually said I wanted AI to replace CEOs. And I got calls when I was president from wealthy white people arguing that AI couldn't replace a CEO because the CEO does so much more than just collect money. They don't. And if a company really wanted to make a lot of money, CEOs take a couple $1 billion home with them. If you get rid of CEOs and replace them with AI, your company will make a lot more money. That is a fact. And yes, you can replace CEOs with AI. But what they chose to do with AI is replace artists because capitalism hates artists because artists can create a product that creates its own value. You draw something and somebody is willing to pay you X amount of dollars for whatever you drew. You drew an image of Marilyn Monroe, somebody's willing to pay you $200 for it. This is why the ultra rich also use art to money launder. They will trade a painting or they'll take insurance out on a painting and then that painting gets destroyed or burned. They get money for it because it's an investment. They do not like music artists. Music artists have some of the worst contracts in American history. This is a serious thing, and it is because capitalists hate them because they can create a product that can create its own value. This is the thing. Everything in capitalism needs to be finite and set up so that you can win. If the system becomes chaotic, then it doesn't work. So this brings me into the sex industry. Women and the war AI has on women, which is replacing all women who make their money through the sex industry with AI. And I look, dude, this is how far the patriarchy is willing to go to destroy women at all costs and keep them at a disadvantage no matter what. This is why Christian churches don't let women in control of things. This is why this church rages against women and does human trafficking. And I want to talk about this. Legalizing the sex industry would eliminate all human trafficking because there are women out there willing to accept money to have sex. Okay, it's not complicated. It would eliminate all incels and all those things complicated in between. Okay, sex has been an industry since forever. It is only when Christians got involved that they started raging against sex. Okay, and then what happened? Well, women stopped putting out, so they started human trafficking because they couldn't get women in any other way because Christians fucking suck. But it's not just Christians, it's Catholics and any other religion that goes, we have gender roles. If you're a man, you have to act like this. If you're a woman, you have to act like this. What women are actually rebelling against isn't the patriarchy. It is an insecure man whose ego is out of control and doesn't have any self-control in his ego. Women inherently like me. You can ask Stu, he's murdered a whole bunch of them because of me, because women inherently like me. Blondie ran into this too. Women naturally like me, and he gave me a call and said, stop talking to women, we have to kill them all. Why is it so that women actually like you and they don't like? Because you're neurotic and weird, you're part of a disgusting religion, and you're a piece of shit. And the only way any of you can get women is under the threat of death because you're fucking incels, and you're the worst kind of incel because you're willing to kill to get laid. But I wanted to talk about the good news in all this horrible things. White Death. My sister dated this loser named Nick, and he was a major fentanyl head, and she saved him from ODing 4 or 5 times. He avoided death. Stu would be so jealous of him. He's died so many times and come back. But white people are still dying, even though they can get Narcan from fentanyl. And it really brought up a thing I remembered that shit with Stu talking about. The church was collapsing originally when Obama was president because everybody was addicted to painkillers because they're lead brains. And regardless of what they call will to power, and I was looking up this thing about why I'm so adverse to taking risks. I'm adverse to taking risks because I have a fully developed adult brain. Adult brains do not take risks. Because there's a risk assessment. Young people don't think. They just do stupid things and then everybody else deals with it. The difference between me and Blondie and what he perceives to be masculinity, which is being extremely risky and stupid all the time, is what a child does. It's how an immature baby thinks. And he wins because, well, the church compensates him for every fuck up. So in his brain, he can do no wrong because he can also destroy anybody. Anybody in the church is willing to destroy themselves to enable him to behave like a 2-year-old. And he, you know, I think about it and I'm willing to bet right now he's like, jealous. Yeah, to some extent. I do wish other people would just get themselves killed for me because unlike Blondie, I would just be doing the right thing and they'd be dying for the right reasons as opposed to just defending a massive human trafficking ring. And I mean that as a fact, by the way. If people just shut the fuck up and help me, we could help so many people. We really could. That's not a joke. The problem is everybody chooses to work against me, to defend the status quo, which is disgusting. And this is where it's leading. Women are no longer dating. They are no longer trying to get men. And they might just completely and utterly stop reproducing in general. And they were talking about, oh, this is a crisis that needs to be addressed by the government. You want the government to tell women they have to have kids now because your religion is so fucking toxic and your guys are so goddamn stupid. They view women as property and they want their property at home away from everybody else and they want to be in control of this thing? Do you not hear how stupid you sound? But let's be honest, they can do it. They can have the government step in and force women to get married against their will. Kazakhstan did it. But that just tells you how far Christianity and religion takes us all into a third world country. But I do want to talk about what I said was I got a little distracted there. What I want to talk about is the hope. Everybody in this church confuses addiction with the will to power. They literally don't know the difference between being addicted and the will to power. That is why when Stu goes, I have to kill people and eat their brains, I'm not an addict. That is just how it is. I'm not demonstrating a lack of self-control and self-discipline. This is what the will to power looks like. And when I talked to Anal Eaton Mummy God, he made it extremely clear that he and everybody in this church doesn't know the difference between addiction and the will to power. He even expressed that addiction can be a good thing if you are addicted to the right things. That's wonderful, but your brain is still programmed to be an addict, and that is why the whole everybody was addicted to painkillers and the church started falling apart, because the fact is, regardless of how much these people pretend to love suffering so much, and one of the things I learned recently is LSD, when you pop it and you're afraid, it turns everything into excitement, because something about how it rewires the brain. So these people, once again, are already drug addicts, okay? They need the LSD so they can experience anxiety in a positive way, so they can experience suffering in a positive way, and they giggle and laugh at everybody else that's suffering because they don't know the secret power of microdosing on LSD. My point about this is, if we quickly want to find a solution to the end of this church, the fastest and best way is going to be for drug dealers to just start marketing fentanyl to every member, or any drug for that instance. I would argue Xanax, because these people believe that having the fear brain is amazing. They believe living in the amygdala is amazing. The amygdala is an addict. The animal becomes an addict. Our cat Floof absolutely loves catnip. He goes absolutely batshit for catnip, because the unregulated primal brain is an unregulated primal brain. It has no self-control. Blondie has no self-control. Stu has no self-control. None of the church leaders have ever had to have self-control a day in their lives. And for that matter, the majority of the malignant narcissists and emotionally stunted people in this church don't know any better but to do drugs. Okay. To them, it's the same thing as the will to power. And to them, it is, I'm dying if I'm not getting my drugs. They have extreme problems with addiction in this church. And I'm just going to say, make it worse. If you're part of a gang, if you are a drug dealer, white Christian people are the people you want to market to, and you're going to want to use that one marketing tactic where you approach them and go, hey man, try this. And don't tell them what it is. I would prefer heroin addiction. I think that would be very detrimental to every member of this church. I believe that they wouldn't be able to self-regulate their heroin. One of the things I'm reminded of is I worked with a guy named Pete Smith, and he used to go on and on about how he wants to legalize every drug, and he's a real edgelord. He doesn't want help clinics or anybody. If you can't handle your shit and you die, that's what happens. And then his friend, that was a manager we were working with, literally was like, Pete OD'd one time, and he doesn't mean a damn word of what he said. He was like, he nearly died, and the people saved him, and then he got help from a clinic. These people are against help, and maybe, like, I can help this along by saying you guys aren't allowed to get psychological help from anybody ever, because you're just pieces of shit anyways. You don't deserve it. You're not entitled to it. You choose to be a garbage person, therefore you need to learn how to live with the consequences instead of externalizing it and saying that you deserve psychological help or you need this or that. Your church is a violent, stupid church. Okay, and if not anything else, it is a prime example of something that definitely, at all costs, needs to be destroyed. And I want to talk about, I am very proud of women. I'm proud of women at this moment in history and them not having kids and not participating in patriarchy. Because the truth about the way guys practice patriarchy is it's not about patriarchy, it's about control. It's about ownership. Women aren't treated like equal human beings, especially by Christians and Catholics, or any religious person. They have to fill a certain role, they have to be a certain way. Okay. And then we rage against the sex industry because sex is literally the only power women actually have over men. And I don't really care if that sounds like a dick move or whatever, but it is literally the only power they have over men. I remember Blondie going on about hating OnlyFans and hating Patreon. And he hates those things because they create individual people capable of generating large amounts of wealth. And it enables them to move up, and he doesn't want, this is the thing about all wealthy, white, entitled people, they do not want you moving into their wealthy, white neighborhoods. They do not want to see success stories. They do not want to see people who make it. They want suffering, and they're entitled to everything. And I want to talk about my sister's dumbass boyfriend, Nick, on this subject, who is such a loser that he's downwardly mobile, but still has a problem with other people trying to make money and get ahead in life because he used to live in Cali and now he can't afford it anymore because that's how the system works. And as these other losers, these other millionaires get forced downward and lose, they're funny as shit because they're like, I'm still better than you, even though they're broke. I saw this with my idiot friend Jash. When I lived in a trailer where he got a house, but that house didn't have any water or any electricity because they couldn't afford it. And he began talking down to me because I lived in a trailer. And he talked about how all this good shit about being better than me without realizing me and you are standing in the same boat. Here's the truth behind this. The fact that you know me tells me that we are in the same boat. And if you're an ultra rich person and you know a poor person, that thin line is how thin you are to being poor. Okay? That is how that works. And as my sister's loser ex-boyfriend continues his path downward, he will continuously punch down because he needs to feel superior to something when he's nothing. And that will be the same truth for Blondie and any member of this church, as they believe that losing is winning, and they believe that doing everything the wrong way, no matter what, is the only way to get things done. And I want to talk about this entire scenario and how it was all about forcing their values onto me. Be reckless, be stupid, be idiotic. Okay? It's a good idea. It's a good idea when you have millions of people willing to get themselves killed for you and you have no agency or accountability. It's a good idea when you have millions of dollars and you can't lose no matter what because you will always fall on your pile of money that keeps you fucking safe, you bastard. And no, you're not really courageous. No, you're not really brave. You're not actually doing anything dangerous at all, by the way. You're just pretending to do something dangerous. You're pretending to be courageous because you know that no matter what, you have the biggest safety net in the world. So once again, I would like to stress that if you are a drug dealer, you should probably target this church I ramble on about, because they are lead-brained addicts and they cannot control themselves. They do not have self-control. They do not practice self-control, because self-control is communism.